Reality shifting, this is the nature. This has to do with things that she can't control. There's dynamic adaptation and static transition. Dynamic adaptation is when Jenny shifts into a new reality, her body changes to match. Here she shifts out of like a basic human world into a world with basically furry characters. She sprouts ears because that's the rule of the universe. They don't have humans in this universe, so her body adapts to change. You can also see this in the late shift, where she's shifting between other realities and her body changes.
Some sort of weird alien thing or something.
Well, it's hard to figure out. You can come up with your own ideas as well. Don't feel restricted to just these. Then there's static transition, where she remains her whole self while traveling between worlds. This is the best example of it. I have some issues with this particular comic, which is why your mileage will vary. This is by Tim Winkleman.
It's a weird one.
Yeah, this is most stories, too, that she's going to be static transitioning. Reality rules. Again, with nature. Compliance, contingency, if that's how you say that word. I just looked up definitions of stuff. And partial compliance. Compliance, Jenny's abilities and appearance complies with the reality she's in. Say, if she's in a Pac-Man world. She's going to adapt. It's hard to find to tell in most cases, because it could just be that she has or doesn't have certain other powers.
Sure.
So this is from Aaron Brescia, and then there's contumacy, which is rules. What rules? Jenny will break everything in sight, including physics. So it's here's an example from Infinity Apartment, where it's like there's no rhyme or reason. Everything just is kind of, hey, it's possible. There it is, behind door number 2.
Exactly.
Partial compliance. Jenny overall obeys the rules of the reality because she has no choice but to. Though her core powers remain all or partially unrestricted. Though here from Jenny Everywhere versus Hell, I'm going with she found a loophole in why she can't shift out of hell. But, it's something to play with. Reality-based, the nature. The infinite, normative, parallels, multiverse, and the fourth wall. So the infinite, relatively new concept, I think started by you.
I think it was actually the Pencil Jack story round. I think it was something that I just sort of randomly threw into it, and then got picked up by people as the story round continued, because I had a very early part in it, and other people used it as well, and then I formally used it in the Jenny Everywhere Chronicles.
So I bet you could probably talk a little bit more about
basically,
this.
the infinite is conceptually it's just a space between space. It's a place in which Jenny can, kind of her consciousness is to a certain extent, or I've always imagined it to be her consciousness. But basically, like, if there was a physical place that represents kind of how she is, it's the infinite. And it's literally, it's a star field, there's nothing there, but there could be Jenny's, there could be, kind of anything. It's a very, it's like you said, it's new.
So it is. Did Gwen ask you about it for her comment?
No, she just used it, which is fine. I mean, I personally have no issue with that.
I guess I didn't know. Well, because she uses like the star field as well.
Yes,
for her.
yes. No, and that sort of, I don't know. I think that's kind of, it's as with many things with Jenny. That's sort of just how it is. I used it kind of randomly in my stuff, and then she kind of picked it up and used it as well for hers,
right,
in different ways and in different, whatever. And that's sort of the evolution of the character in a way. Is everybody can kind of add their own piece to it. The infinite is still in its infancy, which is a weird sentence to say, but people are more than fair game to use it. No. People are more in their rights to use it and tweak it and do whatever the kind of heck they want with it, and it'll work. So.
This is, of course, from Jenny Everywhere Chronicles. Normative is the close to what we would think as reality. With the single universe, other universes are not considered. This is typically a setting because this can't actually happen because of the nature of the shifter, that constant.
Yes.
But here's an example from Brian Fukushima, who just does it's Jenny Everywhere in Journal Comics land, and just kind of, whatever.
Walking around, chilling.
Yep. Parallels, universes that exist in parallel, no connecting points. Parallel. You could consider every single Jenny Everywhere comic story, cameo, etc. to exist in parallel because that has to deal with the concept.
Yes, the general nature of Jenny is that everything is happening all the time.
Right.
Every story happens.
Or there's the multiverse, where many universes that make connections, actual connections between each other. You can think of Venn diagrams, you can think of portal points. The example I have here is in relation to PSI, Pessimistic Sense of Inadequacy, in relation to the crossover wars, because starting with PSI, my Jenny Everywhere also went into, I think, 7 other worlds in here, including Evil Overlords United, Life and Death, Nip Napped, Grin and Spirit, Magical Misfits, Cameo Comic. Technically, the Rogues of Claude Ron, but I haven't done that backstory yet. So, and then there's the fourth wall, where sometimes the medium is the basis for the reality and or the causality. Again, Crossover Wars is a prime example of this, and here's a shot from Crossing Over Worlds, where I'm a furry. Here, I'm the blue wolf dog thing. And she confronts me because I'm a creator, and she's really pissed off at me. We didn't talk about... That's pretty much it. That's all I had.
Yep.
But we also didn't talk about Jenny Nowhere.
Yeah, Jenny Nowhere. It was a character, Nelson, and I can't remember... Nelson Evergreen, I can't remember who the writer was for that.
Get to it, I'm sorry.
But they kind of threw it in. It was one of those, the standard comic at the end of the issue. You have
dun.
Yeah, exactly. The shocking reveal of what's happening next. And they basically had a character as a blonde and called her Jenny Nowhere. There was a little blurb on it.
And it never got followed up.
Nope, never got followed up. But at some point, Nelson officially said...
We had him on... I had him on the Webcomic Beacon. I had Stephen Whitley and Nelson Evergreen and...
Yes, me and Scott Simmons, I believe, was the other one
Maybe,
on there. I'm pretty sure it certainly was.
And it's episode 20 of the Webcomic Beacon, if you look it up. And that's where Nelson said, it's like...
By all means, go to town.
People can use the concept just like Jenny Everywhere.
Yep, so I used it in the Chronicles for a 12-page story. I basically made her a sort of duplicate, a mirror image.
Doppelganger.
Yeah, exactly, a doppelganger version of Jenny.
But almost like a Nega version.
Yes, exactly. I was influenced by Negaduck from Darkwing Duck. That's actually where I got the idea from. But yeah, and I pretty much at that point I'd used her as she had the same powers, same mindset, same whatever as Jenny. And for as far as I know, those two are the only instances she's been used at all.
Well, there's some sort of insinuated uses, I think, is what Nelson was saying. But as far as like explicit, this is Jenny Nowhere.
Yeah.
I like to picture Jenny Nowhere as in there's only one of her, absolutely only one of her. But then again, that can mess with other universes. But kind of like really bent on the getting Jenny for some reason because she's jealous or something.
Yes.
I don't know. But
this again, that one it's really there hasn't been much with her. She's in her infancy.
So there's even more that people can do with because she's really not described.
Exactly, but she's completely open source and anybody can do what they want with her, just the same as Jenny. I mean, heck, if they wanted to do a Jenny Nowhere comic by herself, they could,
And that also brings us to a creation by Adam Smithy, who made Jenny Somewhere.
Yes.
Which he's the only one who's been doing anything with, but he did release the concept.
Okay, honestly, I hadn't known that he'd done that yet.
I think so. I have it on my site, so it must be true. But basically, the way that Jenny Somewhere works is she's a Jenny that can't aim. She just kind of... whatever she tries to. So, kind of like a flawed Jenny Everywhere.
Sure.
Can't get. I don't know. There's not a whole lot about her aside from what's in the comic.
Yeah.
And he has like the Apple of Chaos is like a 24-hour comic he did with her.
Sure.
So. I had to figure out that that's not Jenny Everywhere. So.
And maybe that's where I've gotten thrown off with her because I think I've seen that piece and just figured it was Jenny Everywhere as opposed to somebody else.
I think he thought about it in post. Honestly, I think he thought about it. I think he retroactively did it.
Sure.
There's not a whole lot more to say. If you go to the shifterarchive.com, you can check out the Who is Jenny Everywhere section and the frequently asked questions. You will find, because I salvaged a lot of the original.com site of what they answered. So I'll start with what they answered and what they said, and then below that I'll have the Shifter Archives interpretations, which is mostly my interpretations, but if you want information forget about it.
Yeah, no.
I talk forever, and if you get an email from me, it is that long. So, if you have any questions or thoughts on anything, feel free to ask, because I will feel free north to talk or point out to you where it is. So that's pretty much all we have. I think we might have missed some stuff. We could have just blabbed more about it, whatever. Well, you had the whole thing. The thing I didn't have is the sort of anchoring yourself.
And again, it's just, and that's kind of the nature of Jenny, where that was one page randomly. I thought, hey, she needs to have information about this universe, so she touches a guy and anchors herself to that universe and gleans that knowledge.
It's kind of like the accessing
to a certain extent,
but it's also not through her other selves.
And so it was just sort of a. I kind of needed it and I used it. And that's the nice thing with Jenny is you pretty much anything you need to do, anything you want to do, it's fair game, you can. So.
I think there's also another power where she is. I forget. I don't quite. Damn it.
There's so many different random things. I mean, there's
one where Jenny will take my breath away. She's constricted. She can't really do anything, but she shifts things around her. She shifts her because she shifts her scarf into like a breathing mask under water, and then shifts water into this.
Or shifts the air into water.
Into water, yeah.
And basically drowns a guy.
Well, he doesn't die.
Well, yes, but
she swims out.
She surprises him enough so that he lets her go.
Right. But there is a lot of flexibility and everything,
yes.
And that is all we have for this panel. Again, you can go to theshifterarchive.com, check out the other information. Ask questions if you have it. I've been Fess of, you can go to fessworks.com, and
I'm Benj Christensen of bjccreations.com.
Bye.